What up, y'all? In this video, I want to talk about how women and men tend to speak from different styles of language. So, for example, what I mean by that is that women often speak from a more relational standpoint, while men tend to speak more from have a knack for logistical or scientific language. So if you look at, for example, the most of the male-oriented jobs in the workforce are largely things that require logic and dealing with systems and objects and various things like that. So, for example, take into account engineering, being a mechanic, being an electrician. All these jobs deal with these systems, physical systems in the world, right? So men tend to speak in a way that is more scientific or objective, right? So this is what can lead, some men to say things like, female, I'm dating a female, or I like females, right? Well, women, they'd be like, whoa, stop objectifying us. We are women, we're not females, right? So that's often what they say, but they don't understand that men tend to speak in a more objective way, because that's our role in the world, to go out in the world and do something physical in the world. So that's why we often use objective terms, or more, I guess you could say more scientific terms. Like, this is huge to recognize, because when you're around women, you want to be able to speak more relationally, because women are more relational. Okay, so that's why when we can't necessarily speak like we're in a job, right? And women pick up on this, and because they're so relational, they feel uneasy about it, or it can even be borderline creepy if it's taken too far. For example, like I was watching some video about like the incel group or whatever, and somebody who identifies as that was typed some comment. It said like females mate and breed with the worst males, or something like that. And that was highly logical language, highly objective language. And this type of language can often creep women out, or at the very least, it makes them feel that you're not a relational person, right? And this has huge implications for how women think about you, because women, they're very emotional, and so they want to know that you have the relational skills to comfort them during their difficult times, right? And it's not only just like terms, there's different ways of wording different things that feel more informal or more relaxed, opposed to speaking objectively. So, for example, objective language might be like, or you could also say it's meta, but objective language might be like, can I take you out on a date? Which is not bad. It's not bad, but sometimes people prefer more relaxed, less logical language, like, hey, let's grab a coffee. There's these nuances. Hey, let's grab a coffee. That's just an expression, right? And it's kind of like there's just all these cultural terms and ways of wording things that feel more relational or natural. That's why you have to constantly pay attention to it. So often it's good to read through your messages, your texts or whatever, and if the girl didn't go out with you, maybe you have to think, okay, maybe I used language that wasn't as relational. And this non-relational language does very well in the workplace, which is why men do better in the work. I mean, historically have done, make more money and whatever, not largely because we are not as relational, but in relation with a woman, especially since modern women are different, they're wanting more of a relationship partner rather than a provider. it's a little bit different how it works these days. Another example would even be clavicular. Like when someone, you know, the YouTuber Clavicular, who does this looks maxing, teaching men how to, you know, actually that's even an example right there. I was about to say teaching men how to get women. A lot of women would consider that a more objective, logical way of expressing it. That's normal for men. Men will be like, get women, but women, they wouldn't say it like that. They would be like, find somebody special or something like that, right? So this type of language that even I do, and everybody does it, most men do this, especially if you're closer to being on the spectrum or you're a more logical thinker. It's a habit, right? But even the YouTuber Clavicular, somebody I think asked him like what he thinks about having a girlfriend. He said something like, what's the ROI on that, right? So he's even using these objective terms. What's the return on investment? And that's not relational language, and it makes women not feel something. They don't feel anything necessarily when you speak objectively, and at the worst it actually gets creepy. Things like saying, you know, females mate and breed with the worst males, like things like that. It's very off-putting, and men, we often don't feel this. We don't feel this on such an intuitive level because we're more in the world working. That's what we're built for. Our bodies are built for systems and logical terms and vocabulary and all this stuff that happens in the workplace, in the formal environments. But anyways, it's really good to understand these things. And there's another related, you know, like concept like of speaking formal or less formal, and how that carries different amounts of weight. But I want to save that for a different video. So just check yourself and listen. And you can even throw your text through ChatGPT and be like, what's a more natural way? What's a more relational way to say this? Like, and I'm sure ChatGPT, or you can ask your friends or whatever, they'll give you ideas. But yeah. All right. Have a good one. Peace.